Are we live? We are live.
You're
All
live now?
righty.
What's up?
So I don't know if everybody knows everybody here. Todd, you want to introduce yourself because you're mainly on our channels, like me, Crumps.
Yeah. So Todd Vandermide, I'm former NRA contract lobbyist for Illinois. I was the NRA contract lobbyist here for 25 years. I worked for the FFLs for a while as a lobbyist. I also represented my union for over 15 years down at the Capitol. I ran their government relations department for a number of years. Represented the motorcycle organization of Beta, Illinois for almost 30. Been in the gun industry, and I've had an 07 FFL with an SOT. So I'm pretty familiar with this stuff. I got the nickname the gun law guru in Illinois because as a non-lawyer, I'm a bulldozer operator by trade. And I knew more about, I could explain more about how federal and state gun laws within Illinois interacted when they were proposing these bills and boil it down into layman's terms.
Mhm.
And just, I understood the legal concepts of some of the stuff better than the prosecutors and the lawyers bringing them up. And that usually didn't make for a good time for them. So that's my basis. And when I retired a few years ago, people started asking me comments, and I had started a YouTube channel called Freedom Steel because we were building, and we still are finishing up building 20 new ranges at Aurora Sportsman's Club. And I thought it was just a neat way to kind of chronicle some of the developments we're doing, which led to that, which I am now the president of Aurora Sportsman's Club, the largest gun club in the state of Illinois.
Heard about that.
Oh, cool.
And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And so they started asking me for 2A content, and I started branching out with my own style of stuff. No clickbait in the titles, I guarantee you that. And I try to put a different view. I look at things differently. I am now the vice president of the Second Amendment Defense and Education Coalition. It's a 501c3 based for Illinois litigation. And Chuck Michelle from Michelle and Associates asked me to sit on the Second Amendment Law Center with their board to help give them a different perspective on litigation. Being a non-lawyer and a lobbyist and just a gun guy, I have a tendency to look at something, but I can, I sit there and I've kept for years. They want, people, how do you know? I keep appellate court and Supreme Court decisions in the bathroom. That's the reading material. Because I read all that stuff and I pull out minutia. There should be, from an old Cam and Company post when he was working for NRA, the Heller decision came down while I was on a birthday cruise with my wife. And so I was in the Grand Caymans when my phone started to blow up when we got to shore. Yeah, that was a $1,600 phone bill in 2000.
I was gonna say, yeah, that ain't cheap on the ship.
Yeah, think about that, $1,600 in 2008. And so it was all about Heller, and I had to go to the Wi-Fi cafe at the ship to read it, and I picked out page 63 back then, and everybody kept telling me we couldn't argue that, which was, we know of no other enumerated constitutional right that is subjected to a freestanding interest balancing approach. The very enumeration of that right takes out of the hands of government, even the third branch of government, whether to decide whether the right is really worth insisted upon. So that's one of my favorite passages, that whole paragraph from Heller. And that was that to me was the meat and potatoes of everything.
Absolutely.
There is no interest balancing. And 13 years later, we get Bruin, New York, whatever you want to call it. And we're right back to these guys just renaming interest balancing something else. And so
New York has, it is mind-boggling. Well, that again, Biden has turned his back on the Supreme Court. They're like, hey, you can't forgive people's loans. You don't have that power. He did. Going for round two. It's amazing to me that the Bruin decisions, like, you can't do these things, and if you're thinking about doing these other things, what did they call it? I'm like, I'm stuck on the SAFE Act. I know it's not the SAFE Act. It was the whatever, whatever
Right.
the acronym was for their new carry law. Oh, CCIA, Concealed Carry Improvement Act, which did not improve concealed carry.
No.
It did exactly what Clarence Thomas said not to do. Clarence Thomas is like, you can't declare every part of New York State a gun-free zone, so don't even try it. And they did. It
Right.
just seems to me that none of what New York State is doing should be tolerated. But again, the Supreme Court doesn't have its own police force to arrest Kathy Hochul and enforce its laws, or I shouldn't say laws, decisions.
No, and that was, I think, part of the reason that Warsaw wanted to set up this podcast because, excuse me, I've been advocating. The problem is when Democrats have all three houses, or they have the legislature and the presidency. When they have those two branches of government, they do not look over their shoulders. They just run full
Yeah,
steam
they
ahead, and their attitude is take us to court.
yeah.
And if the courts rule against them, they scream activist courts.
It,
And
that's the horrific thing that we're dealing with, is that they can do whatever they want wrong, illegal, unconstitutional, but it's going to be years before it gets straightened out in court.
right. And so part of that, you're right that the Supreme Court doesn't have its own police force. However, they do have some mean tools at their disposal. But the bigger tool that I think that the Republicans get in power, then they're nervous about upsetting the apple cart because they want to stay in power. And what typically happens is they shit all over the rock bed conservative grassroots movement that got them there in the first place.
Yes.
1994 would not have happened without the conservative movement.
Amen.
And
so you're talking about the Tea Party revolution?
The first one. But and this is where, okay, Hunter Biden is a douchebag. He's a first-rate douche canoe, meth head, whatever. Do I think it's worth investigating why they've drugged their feet on the lying on the 4473 when so many other guys get jacked up? Yes. This whole thing, I get it. You want to get after them, but to me, there's bigger fish to fry. And if you go back to a couple months ago with the Duncan decision and what the Court of Appeals did, they're not even letting a 3-judge panel have it and just going en banc. And then you saw an opinion come out from Judge Van Dyke, and then there was a second opinion. I forget the other judge's name. And they just kind of blew the whistle on the shenanigans that are going on behind the scenes. Well, don't forget that, all impeachments, and the only way you can remove a federal judge is through impeachment.
Which is not, I think there's a handful of times it's actually been done.
Yeah, and they've talked about, the left is talking about impeaching Clarence Thomas. And so to me, if you want, if you want to throw something out there, then why doesn't Jim Jordan sit there as the chair of the Judiciary Committee, start convening a hearing on the improprieties that are happening in the appellate courts over the 2A issues? You have a federal judge with Van Dyke blowing the whistle on the behind the scenes maneuvering to stop a good ruling from coming out. What they may say in the vote and deliberation on the actual merit of the case when that comes down is one thing, but I don't think all this banter whatever back and forth to get him to this. He blew the whistle on it, writing a dissenting opinion. Then why not ask Mr. Van Dyke, Justice Van Dyke, to come before the House Judiciary Committee and lay bare what took place, what's not in your brief?
Yeah, because the House Judiciary has oversight of all of these federal judges.
That's it. They have oversight. And
and you-
so then you pull up the 3-judge panel, or at least 2 of the 3 judges from the Bianchi case in the 4th. And what there's got to be emails, memos, something. We know from the recent release of some of Breyer's stuff that there's memos going back and forth about all kinds of stuff. I can't believe the appellate court operates much differently, right? And, you know, the guy who's not a lawyer, who's not in the courtroom, who's simply looking
Yeah,
at
but you're
stuff,
thinking how this should work or
right,
would
putting
work.
2 and 2 together. So why not ask a couple of those judges from that panel, ask a couple of the judges from the Ninth Circuit to come in on whether or not there's corruption, judicial malfeasance, whatever you want to call it, you know, a bias built in that is subverting the rule of law, and whether or not these judges, in the way they are acting, have committed impeachable offenses. And you know, the left talks about impeaching Clarence Thomas. Think what happens if you impeach the chief judge of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Right.
Even if you don't convict, the fact that you have impeached a federal judge, especially a chief judge, because the current chief judge of the Ninth Circuit was on the en banc panel when Duncan was first dealt with and then went up to the Supreme Court and GVR'd back down. And she now is the chief judge. And the former chief judge, I think, is still on the panel, and he's a piece of work from what I understand. So why not? That once you get Van Dyke and this other justice from the night, and you get a couple from the 4th, then why not call down the chief judges and make them answer the questions and you know, build the case so that, you know, it's always like when, as I've always heard, if you're talking to the feds, don't lie to the feds, because if they're asking you a question, 9 times out of 10, they already got the answer.
Know the answer. Yep.
So build the case. I don't know how the Ninth Circuit would act. I would assume fairly hostilely if you sit there and put in a subpoena for all the inter alia memos going back and forth on how to
They don't
grab
get
the
attorney-client privilege on that.
It's the government's work product, and we're the oversight guys. We want to see it. And
Todd, I want you to pump the brakes for a second.
Sure.
I want to make sure people know what we're doing here and why we're here. Can you tell the people that?
Sure. Hot pipes. Yeah, so I'm involved with Second Amendment Defense and Education Coalition. It's a 501c3 that was started here in Illinois because we had seen some things that we wanted to make sure that, you know, average gun guys got a chance to have a say in litigation and how it was done. And through SADEC, we have been able to have an impact. So let me tell you one of the things that I advocated for. So I was out at the club running a bulldozer last November when I heard Cargill was accepted and going up on cert. Okay.
All right, so Cargill is
bump stocks.
Bump stocks. Okay.
All right. So you guys are gun guys. How do you talk about bump stocks without talking about semi-autos?
There's no way to.
It's very difficult.
Right.
The Department of Justice did a masterful job of dodging the issue. And they, if you read their briefs, they centered the whole issue around the rate of fire and the volume of fire to make these things dangerous. Okay. Almost as if it's a crew served weapon trying to put down suppressive fire. So with that, it's like, guys, we have this absolutely shitty ruling coming out of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Why don't we use an amici brief in Cargill to get the issue in front of the court? And the lawyer said, okay, talk us through this. And I said, well, how do you talk about bump stocks without talking about semi-autos? And if the whole thing is on an ADA issue, the fact is that if you take what they're doing in bump stocks, if you take what they're doing in pistol braces, we are one ATF regulation away from having ARs declared readily convertible, and therefore they are machine guns, and you now have an amnesty to register them without the tax stamp, but that's it. Okay. Look at what they did in New York yesterday. They're now saying that Glocks are readily convertible and should be banned. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a prophet, but they're doing exactly what I said we should argue to the court. The court needs to come down with a narrow interpretation of the statute. You cannot let them get away with this. And oh, by the way, you said in Staples, AR-15s are in common use. Could you please say that again? Because the Seventh Circuit doesn't believe you said what you said. So through the Second Amendment Defense and Education Coalition, partnering up with the Second Amendment Law Center and Chuck Michelle, we're able to put an amici brief together to get this issue in front of the court. And so that was part and parcel of what we do, because it takes a lot of money to get a case to the Supreme Court. It's not that much money to file an amici brief and get a point of view across in another case. And I got a call. Sorry, I hope I hit the mute button right.
Yep, you did.
So we're thinking, and if you look at the FFL case, which SADEC is helping support and fundraise for and contribute to, the other 3 cases down in Southern Illinois went after guns and magazines. We went after guns and parts. You guys have heard me talk about this in the past, but we need to be playing a 4-dimensional chess game. We can't be playing checkers. We can't be just going for what's right here in front of our face. And so everybody was sitting there going, okay, parts. I said, yeah, we want to go after the right to repair. You may have heard this concept with farm tractors or other stuff, automobiles. But in our case, it's bigger than that, because if we win on the ability to obtain parts, and, you know, this all goes back to text tradition history. Well, if we have the right to maintain proficiency vis-a-vis the Zell decision, hello, Rhonda, and then if we have the right to maintain proficiency, we have to have the right to maintain our guns in good working order in a safe manner. So we have to get parts to be able to fix them, repair them, whatever.
Yeah.
If we have the right to repair, well, if I can assemble all the parts, I don't have the right to build my own gun. If I have the right to build my own gun, if I have the tools and the ability, you know, can I manufacture my own firearm for my use? Not a commercial venture. That's a different regime, but for my use. Because if we get that nailed down, and remember, my view is we should be the 27 words of the Second Amendment, we should make to read like the Encyclopedia Britannica. Everything we can fit under those words. So we have the right to acquire. That's the basis.
Keep it
you
there.
have to have the right to acquire. So you either acquire it by buying it commercially, you buy it privately, you barter for it. Maybe you get lucky magnet fishing after somebody's horrible boating accident, or you build your own. And if you go back to tradition, we've been building firearms since the country was founded. I mean, in the Revolutionary War, they imported a lot of firearms, and they relied on small manufacturing, small gunsmithing, things like that. So if we have the right to acquire, that then needs to encompass the right to repair, the right to build, the right to make my own firearm. Well, if we win that, then all the ghost gun stuff goes out the window.
Right.
So why, in my mind, when you want to build the legal foundation, why just run headlong into the ghost gun challenge? Because, you just want to have unserialized, and you've got that whole stigma and all that BS to fight. But if we build it this way, we're building, they can't ban parts, they can't ban parts kits, they can't, the amount of stuff we take off the table is monumental. And that's where, with the Second Amendment Defense and Education Coalition, we're looking at that type of strategic work. That's why the FFL case contains right to repair, not a magazine ban. I'm of the opinion, we drew a really good judgment with McGlynn, but look at what they're doing with the mag ban out west and everything else. It's 20, 30 pages just on magazines. And, that's a whole brief. So
Yeah.
I think it's easier to tackle that issue with right to repair because I think what you're going to grab, what you do in expanding the scope and what we're talking about here, and then the consolation prizes, their ghost gun stuff just goes out the window.
Right.
We can argue about serialization later, but the fact that they can't ban you or make it a felony for you to produce your own firearm, be it be 3D printing or with a mill or whatever. And these are the strategic things that I think we really need to be looking at. And, we're sitting here trying to affect that stuff one lawsuit at a time. We don't have the deep pockets that some of the other groups have. But I think if you see what we did in Cargill, what that brief said in Cargill, it was the beginning of telling the court how bad the Seventh Circuit is. And then I think we kind of led the charge so that if you look at, 3 cases in Southern Illinois, the NSSF case, which is Barnett, the league case, the FFL guys jumped on in their brief to the court for cert. You then had the SAF FPC case, Langley file. GOA is part of the FFL case, but they chose to file their own cert petition for their part of the litigation. Everybody had some pretty sharp elbows about how bad the Seventh Circuit ruling was. I was really surprised some of the licks that got in there. There's no way that the court is uninformed about how bad some of the appellate courts are treating their New York decision. And then as luck would have it, as we're doing all this, lo and behold, Bianchi comes up and look at the shenanigans they're pulling there. So they do that. And the interesting thing is the lawyers for the cert petition on Bianchi are Cooper and Kirk, who also happen to be the appellate lawyers in the SAF case. So they got 2 bites at the apple, and they got to throw elbows both ways. I think that it would have been nice to have California throw in a cert before judgment petition on Duncan, and then you'd have the trifecta of East Coast, Midwest, Central. Look, because the problem we've got is unless the state of Texas lets Houston pass something retarded, we're not going to get a gun ban out of the ruling out of the Fifth Circuit unless the feds pass one. And if the feds pass one, everybody should sit down, figure out how to file in the Fifth Circuit, and be done with it. It's the fastest way to the court. All right. Those guys down there are getting a rocket docket about how they're handling stuff because they've got all the APA cases. I'm betting this new rule that Biden just dropped a week or so ago is going to end up in litigation in the Fifth Circuit.
So tell everybody what APA is, because you're talking a lot of lingo.
Sorry,
and that's okay.
Administrative Procedures Act. That is the law that governs how federal agencies administer rules and regs. There are 3 types of law. There's constitutional law, there's statutory law, and there is administrative law. And administrative law, depending on where you are, in Illinois, they're called rules. In the federal world, they're called regulations. So just like in the Federal Motor Vehicle Standard, SMV 218 is the one that governs a lot of automobile stuff, crashworthiness and all different kinds of things. And it's there. And there was an original case called back in the 70s called Chevron, which was Chevron versus EPA, which came out with the Chevron doctrine, in which deference,
or Chevron deference, that we all know,
deference was given to the agencies for their interpretation of something vague, and the court is on the verge potentially of throwing that out. Now, my thought.
Well, first off, Chevron was only supposed to be for civil, not criminal.
Yes. Now, I mean, all of those civil cases still have a kind of criminal penalty to them. If you don't pay, you don't go by the ruling or something like that. But yeah, it was never supposed to be used in a criminal case. So
Right.
most of the stuff we see in gun cases are all criminal charges.
Which
You're
is why.
convicted of this for holding this gun or
Yep.
putting that attachment on the gun or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you've got the APA out there, and this is where I think all too often our side gets caught up in, just trying to grab somebody and strangle them, till their eyes bug out. And we really, instead of playing checkers, we need to be playing 4-dimensional chess. And this is where my thing was turn Cargill from an APA case into a 2A case. If we get them to say something that we meant what we said in Staples, AR-15s are in common use, and you have to have a narrow reading. I mean, I don't know if there's such a way for judicial notice. Usually there is, in the courts there is. But when you're in front of the Supreme Court, there's no other judicial notice. They are the judicial notice. But I think exactly what we talked about in our brief in Cargill is what New York is trying to do today. The most common handgun in the United States. And,
Right.
Now that's a criminal penalty, a criminal statute, not an administrative rule. But if we get the right ruling out of Cargill that you cannot simply criminalize the possession of common firearms by administrative processes or whatever, or say something about what's actually readily convertible means, then I think it helps us. It'll be interesting since our petitions are all up next week for cert. Whether or not on Monday we'll get a definitive answer, because I'm of the mindset they may relist them and keep going until we get Rahimi and Cargill out, and then
Highly possible.
then they could do what they did in Duncan and Bianchi and GVR them. But I would think if they were going to take a case, Bianchi would be a good case to take, because look, we sent it back and we told you. And if you're not going to listen, then here you go. And I think they need to just pimp slap some people. And I know that Roberts, from all the things I've read and see, he wants to move the needle incrementally. But I don't know how, as the chief judge, you sit here and allow such an open defiance. You have a court in the state of Hawaii saying it goes against the principle of aloha. Which is like, I didn't think you could outdo frivolous Frank Easterbrook in his feelings in Friedman. And Hawaii goes, hold my beer.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
No, it's not even feelings. It's aloha.
The aloha spirit.
That's the argument I was talking to someone the other day about. The frustrating thing with a lot of these cases is they should never make it out of state court based on state constitutions. So Hawaii's constitution basically has a mirror of the Second Amendment in their state constitution. It should never make it any further than that.
And
New York,
somehow their
same
judges
thing.
are living in an alternate reality for the way they interpreted that constitution. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the mushrooms are better over in Hawaii.
So Todd, here's the thing, and I hate to say it, I know Coop, and we've had conversations other than on the internet and stuff like that, but I've never actually spoken to you. But I'm going to assume you're of the same mind on this. If I was a judge and I had to abide by the law, and even if it was something I disagreed with, even passionately, but the law dictated my actions had to be contrary to what my personal beliefs were, I would do what the law, like the Constitution, said.
Yes. And it's the same way we were taught, as welding inspectors. So it doesn't matter how I feel about something. What matters is those black words on white paper. And if what I feel doesn't fit inside that wording, I can't do anything about it. Legally, I can't do anything about it. But you have judges, Easterbrook and others, who are just, oh, they're making this up as they go.
Well, no, but part of the problem is the rumor and the scuttlebutt has been out there for a while that Easterbrook and his old running buddy Posner, who is now in a home with dementia, those two guys were considered the big wigs of the Seventh Circuit, that they were passed over, that Scalia got there before they did. They thought they were superior to him and others, and they never got their crack at the court. And they're pissed off, and I was in the courtroom. Easterbrook and Posner were on the McDonald panel, and I watched Frank Easterbrook look at Steve Hallbrook and say, "Counselor, this isn't the last stop on this train, so why don't you just stop and save your time?" And he was just that fucking arrogant, and I don't think he's changed at all. I would love to get in front of him and do my own case and sit there and just, Your Honor, I really don't give a shit what you think, because the court above you has already said X. And if you're too retarded to understand that, then maybe you should skip senior status and just retire.
Yeah, well, that's probably the reason I'm not a lawyer, because I'd probably say something very similar.
Well, see, that's the beauty now. When I go to testify at the state capitol, I don't have to watch as much of what I say, because I don't have clients to worry about. I don't have, the last time I went in front of the committee, I went in one of my tactical shirts with my FU patch that's up behind me, and I don't care. And the one anti-gunner, the one where I was in a sport coat and looking like Santa Claus, she asked me what the Second Amendment said, and I verbatim, and there's a clip of it on YouTube, and now she is, she got beat, but she didn't want to ask me any more questions, and I'm at a point where it's like, get off my lawn, get off my Constitution. I don't care what you feel. I don't care what you think.
Did she think you didn't know what the Second Amendment said?
2 other lobbyists could not recite it.
No.
Yes. Hey, look, Jerry Nadler tried to recite the Constitution. When was it? Today? The Second Amendment. And he left out that whole right of the people thing when he did it.
It's 27 words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And she said, well, where's an individual right? The people, like the first, the fourth, the ninth. I mean, maybe she didn't think I could count that high.
Well, I mean, the Bill of Rights, or the rights of the people. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a cloud engineer. I don't know this shit.
Yeah, no. It seems fairly, it seems like, there's a reason they wrote Army manuals for the sixth grade reading level, Yeah, go back, look at them. That's how they're written. There's a reason for that, but evidently they don't have the Constitution for dummies for lawmakers.
No, they don't.
But, and I've gotten to a point to where I told our side, quit negotiating with these guys. All we've done is educate them. When we had the hope of winning over the votes to move the needle and kill a bill, okay, we go in there and we make arguments about the technicalities of a bill. Now, don't. We're just educating them on how to build a better mousetrap. My attitude is see you in fucking court. And with the right rulings, that are enforced, and lower courts that get taken to the woodshed, you got to believe that Thomas and Alito want to just scream and put these guys over their knee with a paddle. And what part of do you not understand?
Well, that's why we need Jim Jordan and them to really come at this.
Sure.
I posted Jim Jordan's email stuff in the chat a few times already. But see, they have the oversight over these federal judges. That's where the impeachments would start.
Look at what the Durbin and the Senate is doing with their judicial committee when they're playing games with stuff. You know what? And look, CNN's not going to be your friend. PMSNBC is not going to be your friend. Whatever. Deal with, deal with it. But I think here, when you talk about judges not following the courts, and when you have judges openly putting out dissents claiming foul within the administrative practices of the court, then I think that's worthy of an oversight hearing.
That is definitely worth it. And see, we
That's what
need
they're
those
there for.
because these federal judges basically walk around like they're untouchable, and so they can do anything on the bench, and no, but there's no recourse for it at all.
Right.
I mean, even when they get overturned and overturned harshly, nothing ever happens to them.
Right. And I don't know what the administrative, each of the judges covers a circuit or whatever. I don't know what administrative remedies are at their disposal. You saw Thomas and Alito smack down the second after their BS, and I wonder if that guy is taking a clip from my sign off. And it just, we got to dive into. And the other part of it is, I've always thought with state judges, once upon a time, we had a couple of state judges that even when guys were nully prossed or found not guilty, they refused to return their firearms to them in Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
They just said, just like this judge up in New York, you can't do that. There's no Second Amendment in my courtroom. Well, that's when it's like, okay, so either we start filing complaints with the ARDC over the judges, or we start filing complaints with the ethics commissions or whatever and saying, you can't let this stand, and just start flooding them. I know there's been a movement with some guys here in Illinois over the campaign contributions of the two Illinois Supreme Court justices. It hasn't gone anywhere, and the administrative process within the courts has said no, said we're not going to do anything. There's no merit to your claim here. Okay, I get that. But when there's rulings that are clearly wrong, whether they be evidentiary or procedural or otherwise, then we need to make their lives miserable. And in Illinois, judges are elected, so they need 60% retention to stay on the bench once they're there. That's how short story. Illinois, the Republicans got their act together and they beat a Democratic judge in the 3rd district for retention. He failed to get 60%. And that scared the Democrats enough that they had supermajorities in both chambers. They redrew the Supreme Court districts. They hadn't redrawn them in over 20 years. And they redrew the districts to favor them because the Republicans were on the verge of taking a majority on the court. The next election would have given them the opportunity to have a 4-3 swing instead in their way instead of the other way. And so
that's criminal. That is completely criminal.
Well, they just changed the rules again to a week and a half ago. They gutted a bill like they did in our gun ban. They sat there and made an election bill. And the practice was, if nobody ran in a primary, so you're in Chicago, the Republican seat's open, that the Republicans could appoint by the committeeman a candidate. They had till like August to do that. And there are 2 Democrats in Southern Illinois. Republicans did not put up a candidate in the primary. Nobody filed. They were looking for the best candidate they thought they could get. And lo and behold, before anybody's appointed, they turn around and they change the election code to where they can no longer appoint anybody. So,
no way.
Oh, yeah.
Illinois is playing dirt, which I mean, Democrats are doing that in a lot of states right now.
Wait, was there a president that came from Illinois with some shady circumstances?
Obama?
I don't know.
I know Obama. I lobbied Obama. I have one story about him. I sat in his office with another gun lobbyist, and I just said, hey, it's the beginning of the year. We're going to have a bunch of bills up in front of the Judiciary Committee. Any chance you're a law professor? And his attitude to me was, well, Todd, I think the Second Amendment means something.
Wow, that's brilliant.
That's a verbatim quote. And so we didn't get any votes out of him, and he, I think, missed a few committee hearings. And then
Didn't he miss all of them?
no, he missed a lot of votes on the floor when he was campaigning for the Senate. But then as he was campaigning for the Senate, right after the election was the veto session, I was behind the Senate chambers in the hallway there working some stuff. And I was standing in one of the ante rooms there, and he came by, saw me. Hey, Todd, how you doing? I said, pretty good, Senator. He goes, well, I don't think you're going to have to worry about any gun bills coming up for votes. And I said, oh, contrary, Senator, because he was now going to be a United States Senator. And I said, because the Republicans had won the majority. I said, we replaced 4 Fs on your side of the aisle with 4 As on the other side of the aisle. So that Protection of Lawful Commerce Act that you don't like, you're going to get a chance to vote on it. And he just looked at me and turned around and walked off. And I know he remembers me because a buddy of mine got drugged to a Democratic fundraiser, and he ran in. They said, "Oh, Obama's going to be there," and I think he was running for president. And my buddy's like, "Yeah, okay, so what?" And he used to be my boss at NRA when he had Illinois, and they bumped into Obama. And he said, "What do you do?" He's, I used to cover Illinois. He goes, really? He goes, you know my friend Todd? And he goes, yes, I do. I was Todd's boss. And so, yeah, Obama knows who I am. It would be funny to have a debate with him about a bunch of this stuff. Usually a lot of those guys don't like to debate me because of the way I come at it.
So since I led you down the diversionary path, can I ask you about a judge? I'm not sure if you're going to know who this guy is. Emmett G. Sullivan.
I know the name. I'm trying to remember why.
Michael Flynn. General Michael Flynn.
Yeah.
That's a boy. I can't tell you. I don't think I could tell you unless we're on a desert island with no electronics what my thoughts on this guy are.
Well, yeah. I've had a few run-ins with judges. It's interesting. They're elected here in Illinois. I learned from one former appellate judge, they're not supposed to opine about their opinions on subject matters that may come before the court. But Mort Zwick, God rest his soul, Heller had come out. And, I had gotten a meeting with him at a place called Manny's. It's a delicatessen that's like all the politicals go there for a photo in Chicago. And so we were actually having a lunch there. And a friend of mine said, hey, I want to set this up for you. And Mort looked at me and he goes, you know about Heller? I said, oh, yeah, I know all about Heller. He goes, I can't tell you what I think other than well-written, well-reasoned. And that became the pseudo language that I could always tell Judge. I said, I know you can't tell me, but, I was once told that Heller was well-written and well-reasoned, and that was legal for you guys to say. You would see the light start to go on in their eyes that, okay, there's the magic word that, I can say. 30 years in this business has been a roller coaster of stuff. And there was one time I was in the Senate president's office, former Senate president, and he had 3 lawyers in there with him. And it was me and one other person. I did all the talking, and I'm like, what gives, Mr. President? He goes, I've seen you write laws. I've seen what you've done, and I don't want to be outsmarted, and that's why they're here. And the problem was I was smarter than all of them. But
that's a hell of a shame. Todd, I'm not. You're a super smart guy, and also very practical with your knowledge.
That's the biggest advantage I think I had. Everybody just looks at words on paper and if they've been a public defender or whatever, they have a certain bias or they come at it from a certain life perspective. If you've never been in the gun world, if you've never transported guns, if you've never had to do some of these things, then you don't understand how federal and state law merge and how this all happens. And that's where I think I had the edge. And the other part was I knew I wasn't a lawyer. So I had to sit down and learn things like, constructive possession. I had to learn Fourth Amendment search issues. And all I had to do was treat it like a jury and sprinkle enough doubt that they were going to have problems, if not on the Second Amendment, on the First Amendment, or on the Fourth Amendment, whatever. And then in one of them, I sat there and I just told them when we were doing the gun, you can't put us all in jail. And now you have no cash bail. So what are you going to do? Now you've got 90 plus sheriffs that say they're not going to enforce this. Now what are you going to do? And that's where, it's like that's the whole reason behind my patch is it's not only we can say no, we have the means to back it up. What are you going to do? It's just, we're tired. I mean, you don't want to give an inch on it because even when you say, okay, this makes a certain amount of sense. Okay. We're going to do this. And then they turn around and they just like what Coining gave up in that abortion of a bill in Congress 2 years ago. And now look what ATF's trying to run away with it at. So, I'm really of the, they want to say, how are you? And, it's like Pat Buchanan, we'll regulate it when you got to tow it with a Jeep. But
I don't even want to regulate it then.
No,
I get it. But that's just kind of like, you start putting the parameters around. But, the problem is we're paying for this on both ends.
Yes.
We're paying for it with our donations, and then we're paying it with our taxpayer-funded bottomless pit lawyers at the Attorney General's office or whoever. And the issue, that's where, Jordan has no role over the Attorney Generals in general. But you got to think that, if there ever were checks and balances within the Constitution, the oversight role of the House and impeachment proceedings for federal judges who have lifetime tenure is the quintessential point.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, get these guys up there and make them defend their decisions. Make them sit there and defend it. Make them.
Yeah, but they don't have. We don't even have to go there. We don't have to put our thumb in there to make it look like we're tampering with the opinions because we don't like their opinions. What I'm talking about is how did they decide that they were going to play this game, that it's going back en banc and not let the 3-judge panel have a bite at it when you clearly have 2 judges on the appellate panel calling foul. Van Dyke is one, and I forget the other guy. It starts with a B, I think. Who sat there. He wrote another dissent in it saying there's chicanery afoot here. And then you got all the open, you've got what the 13 months without a 3-judge decision panel. And then you turn around and in the 11th hour, we're going to take this en banc, sua sponte, without an opinion.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do that 13 months ago? We'd at least had an opinion by now, and we'd be up on review.
And see, that's happened in 2 circuits, not just one. What was it? I think the 9th Circuit pulled something like that, and the 7th.
That in Duncan, the 9th has pulled that, and now because Duncan is up on the en banc panel, they are staying all the other cases that get decided or whatever pending the outcome of Duncan, which is probably going to be a bad decision for us unless they want to play a real screwy game and remand it down lower again. I firmly believe that the other side is trying to run the clock out, hoping for a second Biden term.
Yes.
And
I
a
think
couple
so.
of the guys on our side, kicking the bucket, retiring, or whatever. I think the
Mhm,
more they
mhm.
pick on Thomas, the more he digs his heels in.
Oh
The,
yeah,
the
yeah.
more he's, and you gotta hope that Alito sticks around. And
Yes.
I'll make this prediction:
Got to
if
buy these guys gym memberships.
if Rahimi is short and to the point, the feds win in general. But this is what we mean by text tradition. Hey, what Gorsuch
All
writes.
right. So tell everybody what Rahimi is.
So Rahimi is about an absolute scumbag
Yes.
who was charged for possessing a firearm in violation of federal law while having a civil order against him for a domestic order for not possessing firearms.
So there's like 3 frickin' reasons legally you shouldn't have a firearm.
Yeah.
At least.
And they're challenging this part under the code that, under a civil order, they can take his rights away, even though he agreed to it without a lot of due process and some other stuff. And the judges originally said, yeah, this is constitutional. Then New York came out and then they said, we got to rethink this. And based on the new test, we have to reverse ourselves. Just like you talked earlier, if they didn't, agree with the law, would they do the right thing? And here, these judges, a change came from the Supreme Court. They acted appropriately in
Mm-hmm.
what they thought the law was. Okay. So Rahimi is up at the Supreme Court. It was argued earlier this year. We're now waiting on a decision on that. I think, one, they will find the statute constitutional in the narrowest of terms. Maybe an as applied challenge, maybe a little broader. If it's a larger opinion, I think Barrett will write it because she's a female and she's had thoughts on this issue on nonviolent felons. And I think I'm anticipating we will be better for the wear because this is the first case where the court will have a chance to expand on text, tradition, and history as the test for 2A issues. And they could put down some markers about the tradition and history or the what they're doing in California in the Ninth Circuit is they're doing this. You have to have an analog, and it's the same 3 laws about storage of gunpowder and whatever that they always cite and say, well,
Yeah.
that's good enough, or Bowie knives or whatever. And this is where I think you need to take the contrarian opinion. No, you can't be that broad that there was something on the
Here's the thing with the 1783 Mass Act that they're using, because I saw that in a brief. I can't remember where it was Bonta or another case, and I read into it. All right, that case for the government to take your guns, you had to go through a jury trial, and then if the jury did find you guilty and the government took your guns, they sold your guns right back to the public at public auction. It was never a ban on arms at all. It completely disproves the government's case.
If you take it down to how it was applied, you're absolutely right. So, so Rahim is a dirtbag. Worst, we usually don't like criminal cases going up because most of the criminal cases going up, they're not the best clients. They're not the most defendable people. You can defend the principle, but people have a tendency to get carried up in the emotions and say, you want felons to have guns. No, but if they've paid their debt to society, if you can't trust them out on the streets with a pocket knife, why are they out on the streets at all?
Amen. That's where I used to be against that, and now I'm like, all right, if he's safe enough to be out on the street, she are safe enough to be out on the street. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
They have the rights.
There's a whole bunch of that stuff. So we've got Rahimi and we've got Cargill that we talked about earlier, and this is where I think that you look at some of the stuff that went on down in the latest Texas suppressor case, and I think they missed some opportunities. I've read those briefs, and I think sometimes our side leaves too much on the table. And we need to have coordinated amici campaigns in all these cases. That Rich, you're going to take this piece of the pie. Coop, you're going to take this piece of the pie. These guys are going to have that. Everybody, and if you cut the pie up, then everybody gets their 3,000 words to say that, and you don't have to spread your 3,000 words over 4 or 5 different topics.
Yeah.
Just make your pitch here, and we keep making this, wide and deep, and we get there. That's that's why we've been arguing some of the cases, and the Second Amendment Defense and Education Coalition has gotten in there to do some things and put their names on some briefs, and it has been trying to drive some of this stuff where we try to get the most bang for our buck, but we try to be thinking about litigation in a 4-dimensional way so that it's not the same old. I mean, I get that SAF and FPC have gone after these 18, 19, 20-year-old bands. I think there's more productive, bigger fruit out there to be plucked. I'm amazed that we're almost the first guys in the country to tackle registration in the FFL lawsuit. That really hasn't gone on in a bunch of other states, but we'll see what New York does with this Glock bill. They're going to keep giving us opportunities for stuff. We've had a waiting period forever. I'm assuming that with some of these new waiting periods cropping up, that they're going to get tackled in those other areas. The funny thing is, a couple of those areas, you got the 9th, which is stupid. You got the 2nd and 4th, which are stupid. You got the 7th, which is borderline stupid, depending on. Yeah. But I mean, they had this whole case on a nonviolent felon, and it's been turned back to the lower court about what to build up a better record. And if you listen to those orals, they were given the government, the DOJ, just ask for another brief. We'll let you have it. I mean, they knew what they needed to do. They didn't have the guts to do it. Yes. And they were hoping that the government could do a better job. They're like, no, we think we've got all we need in our briefs. The guy was not taking a hint, and so, you're not going to see the good case on the big stuff to have the circuit split, because you're generally not seeing the really atrocious laws in the good circuits, because it just doesn't go that way. But it may be breaking with Colorado. We'll see. I can't remember if New Mexico's in the 9th or not. I'm not sure.
I'd have to look up a court map to see.
Yeah,
because some of these circuits are drawn out really strange, to say the least.
True. And if Jim Jordan wanted to have another thing about oversight, well, then how about the way the federal courts are mapped out? Why don't we look at a realignment there?
That would be seriously good too.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, I would just like to see some of these judges be called to hearings and asked about, like I said, maybe not even get into decisions, but why was this handled this way, or why was this handled that way, which is completely contrary to the way that your court is supposed to handle things. Why are you aligning these things this way? And why, when the Supreme Court sends something back down to you with instructions, that you just decide you're still going to do whatever you want?
Yeah.
I forget which article sets up the courts, but it says Congress shall create inferior courts.
I think it's Article
3. Yeah.
So, all right, Article 3 sets up the Supreme Court, and then says Congress can set up inferior courts.
Note the word inferior.
Yes. And what that means is you don't necessarily have to impeach a judge. You can eliminate the court. Jim Jordan, or, fill in the blank, the Congress can say, guess what? Your court does not exist. Have a nice day. You're not impeached. Your job just no longer exists. So there are actually 2 ways to get rid of these guys.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. Uh, the judge we've got in Southern Illinois. So yesterday, I think it was, he issued an order. The state wanted to push off things another 30 days, and he said no. The one expert that they said is indisposed. He said, we'll talk about that next week. Funny thing is, we've got our next conference on the case on the 16th, the same day the Supreme Court's going to conference. So,
yeah, please tell me that's Yergulitis. I would love to see that guy just get blasted out of the water. As far as an expert, there's a guy. What is it? It's Gun Sense University or something. James E. Yergulitis. He's a former ATF agent that basically runs this, and they testify. They write all the briefs for all of these anti-gun laws and shit.
Yeah, no, it's Dr. Martin Schreiber.
I don't think I know. I'd have to look up Gun Sense. I'd almost bet you he's probably on his team. Because a bunch of the guys, even this lieutenant, whoever it was that wrote some other anti-gun briefs the other day, who's absolutely insane. They always tend to run in those same circles.
Well, that former Marine, was he a former Marine?
I think he was a Marine, yeah.
The guy that wrote that stuff about how devastating ARs take arms off and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh!
You know where he gets that from?
Was he shooting fully semi-automatic?
No. Well, there was Yergulitis actually cited it in one of his briefs. There was a very early on report on the M16 in Vietnam. In very early reports, there was some ARVN troops. I think it got introduced into, and I can't remember what year it was. It's extremely early, where there was a report of a single AR-15 or M16 bullet hitting a guy in the torso and cutting him in half. And there was another report of it actually just taking his head off and decapitating him, completely blowing the lines out on this. I mean, even with a 20-inch barrel, were they shooting 55s or 62s back then? Even with that round, there's no way that bullet does that damage. But what they were doing was they were hyping this thing up because they wanted this M16 so bad that they were just completely exaggerating the results of it.
Yeah, this guy's a trauma surgeon out of Portland, it looks like. He's connected with a bunch of the stuff up there. So, is Portland where Harborview came out and all that bullshit stuff?
But I hate to say, I don't care what kind of damage an AR-15 does or a 50 BMG does. It's our right.
Yeah, it doesn't make it any more or less constitutional.
I care what damage it does when I'm trying to put a bad guy down. I want the most effective round I can have.
Amen.
There's that end of it. But look, that all goes back to interest balancing about whatever. And I know that Mark Smith over at 4 Boxes, sits there. Well, I can't tell if that's a ballistic tip or tracer.
Ballistic.
Okay. It's orange, so it's one of two things.
This will take your lungs completely out of your body. This one, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Crap. You guys got me off track of where I was.
We're good. We're good at derailing things, brother.
So let me hit you right here with what is the call to action? I've been dropping the links in the chat here. So
a couple of things. I think the first thing is I think we ought to light up Jim Jordan.
Just drop that link.
It would be nice to be able to set up a podcast Zoom call or something where I'm saying, hey, Mr. Chairman, are you aware? Here's what happened in California. Are you aware? Here's what happened in the 4th Circuit. And what do you think about holding some oversight hearings? Not on the opinions they issue, but how they've been gerrymandering these cases and the paths they take to get the outcomes that they want. And I think putting it to him, I mean, I saw one where Jarrett from Guns and Gadgets got to sit down with him at a fundraiser and asked a few questions and stuff like that. I'd love to be able to sit there and say, hey, I mean, look, if you want to give Nadler fits, if you want to watch the Penguin sit there and just, lose his shit.
Crap himself again.
Yeah, start start dragging, bring the guys that complained about it, the Republican, bring them in, let them tell their story, and tell us what's not in the memos. I don't. What they wrote is just the outline. Tell us what's not in the memos. What emails? Who said what? What did the chief judge have to say? And get after that. And we're not complaining about an opinion. We're complaining about the process, and go after that. So I think the first thing is seeing if we can get Jim Jordan, because until the Republicans control the United States Senate, and knock on wood that they win 3 or 4 seats. And here's part of the thing I'm going to tell everybody: so long as Snow, no, not Snow, the one from Maine, so long as she's there and Murkowski from Alaska are there, you're going to need 2 more than 51.
Mm-hmm.
2 more, because just any Supreme Court judge that's going to go up there that's a Republican is going to be ridiculed or just harassed by those 2. And if you don't have those 2 on board and you only got 51, you've got 49.
Yep.
And now fortunately, but that means you got 49, and even with the vice president, you only got 50. So you're going to have to time the vote to where the Democrats don't have somebody there.
Yeah.
And play that game. So, we need to win as much as we can to sit there and have a 52-53 vote Senate majority, so you can then because when I think it was Frost or whatever the guy out of Arizona was, he went along, and when he went along, that kind of sealed Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh getting in there. He at least stayed the party line. So it would be nice to have a Senate Republican Judiciary Committee that can do the same thing, because they confirm judges.
Yep.
Yeah, and Biden, and that's
and they would be the guys having the impeachment trial.
Yep.
And for some of the weak-kneed Republicans that we have over there, you want to put the fear of God into those guys, build a bill of particulars on articles of impeachment that show the improprieties of, say, the chief judge in the Ninth Circuit. And at that point in time, you want to see them crap their pants. Here, you've got judicial malfeasance. You've got, the question for Jim Jordan to investigate is, did chief judge or any other judges in their manipulation of the case commit impeachable offenses? And did they direct an outcome based? Because if we can't have the faith that we're going to have our day in court and get a fair hearing on the merits and what the law is, even like you said, Rich, you don't agree with the law, but that's what it is. What was it? Better, 100 guilty men go free than 1 innocent man goes to jail.
Amen.
That you err on the side of the law. The law says X, and that's what we ought to be doing here. And that's why I think, the federal judges have lifetime tenure once they're sworn in.
Good behavior.
And see, Joe Biden, what people have not paid attention to is Joe Biden and his administration. These Democrats have put, 100 and something, probably close to 200 judges on the federal and circuit courts since Biden's been in office. Yeah. And those guys are going. You think they're going to defend anything as far as the constitutionality of arms ownership or
no? They're going to be full of the aloha spirit.
Yeah. We've actually had a couple of Obama judges do it, so you hold out hope. But the point is that one thing Mitch McConnell, besides holding up Merrick Garland, one thing he got right was with Trump was filling as many. I'm sorry they didn't fill more.
Yes.
And, I think the Democrats, there had always been this lackadaisical, there's always vacancies. We'll get around to it. It wasn't always the priority of the Senate. Maybe they were used as trading chips. We'll get you your judge, but we need this vote over here, whatever it was. But the Democrats saw Trump just the Ninth Circuit is almost balanced, Republican versus Democratic judges.
Yes.
I think they saw, when McConnell said, "No, we're going to straighten out this judge shit," and I think it scared the ever living bejesus. That's it. And I think that the next time we have a Republican Senate and a Republican president, we should be putting people, Katie bar the door.
Well, see, and here's the scary thing, and I can't remember what I was talking to Warsaw about it tonight or a couple days ago. The really scary thing to me is that Democrats, because I'm watching a lot of states, Pennsylvania and others, who are basically cementing in mail-in ballots. They're cementing in more drop boxes, and plenty of ways to get around any sort of voter integrity. So Biden holds on to the White House. They actually gain some seats in the House, gain control of that, keep control of the Senate. Biden either is able to put judges on the Supreme Court because people are tired and they're done with it, or if they keep going against his administration, he just goes ahead and packs it. And if it does that, we're through.
Yeah, the question is, do they get enough lefties to overturn the filibuster? That is one thing. What was it?
Manchin was the one who held that up forever.
Manchin and Selena out of
Sinema.
Arizona, those two, they deserve kudos for that.
And see, Sinema's out. Sinema's done.
Yeah.
She's leaving. I think if she's not left already, she's leaving after this term.
She is. Her seat is up for election.
Yeah. And Manchin,
he's not running. He's out.
Yeah. So you're two Democrats that actually had a spine that wouldn't just completely side with a party every single time. Who do you think is going to get their seats?
Well, the Manchin's is 75% to go to the Republicans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Manchin's seat is leaning Republican without him there. He was not a wackadoo Democrat, so they needed him there to hold that seat. And that's why they were always catering to him, because without him, they got a problem in West Virginia. Tester has problems up in Montana. And one of the guys that I think is an absolute nut job, Sheldon Whitehouse, seems to have some issues over there in Ohio.
Yeah, Sheldon Whitehouse cannot be in a hearing without talking about dark money.
Right. The problem the Republicans have is that they are too stupid when it comes to organized labor.
100%.
I am a union tradesman through and through. I worked for Bill Dugan, and I got to work for the greatest labor leader there ever was. He had a transistor radio on his desk and religiously listened to Rush Limbaugh on his AM transistor radio every day. And he sat there and threw money at Republicans, and he knew that, I was conservative. Our trades guys are conservative by and large. And we knew from running our voter rolls that 30% of our members voted in the Republican primaries. You know that, okay? So the thing that I try to impress upon Republicans is, look, I have nothing more than a high school diploma. That's it. I don't have a college degree. And with that, as an operator, I could go out and make a good job, make a good living at a decent wage. I never lobbied for minimum wage. Did not give a shit about minimum wage. I cared about prevailing wage. You will pay Illinois wages for Illinois work in our market. All right. Operating engineers today are making $50 an hour on the check. We have some of the highest paid operators in the country for the skill and the trade that we push out there. And the trades in Chicago, there's no better place to work. But if you fuck with their jobs, you screw with the guys who this is the only way they know how to make a living. They're the guys that buy $70,000 diesel pickup trucks, bass boats, all the other stuff. Yep. They ride Harleys and they like their guns. So Why screw with them? If you don't screw with their job, if they don't feel that there's a chance that they're not going to have the ability to earn the living that they are earning now, then they will vote guns, church, whatever. They will disregard the labor leaders. And what the Republicans never drove home. You had Cecil Roberts, the head of United Mine Workers, standing there giving John Kerry a Remington shotgun because the United Mine Workers represented the workers at Ilion in New York. And what people should have been doing was saying, this guy voted to put all your jobs out on the street. And most of those jobs have now gone to Alabama or wherever it is that they moved to. And if you don't screw with these trades guys' job, look, I'm not for a right to work. I'm not for repealing prevailing wage. We will pay.
Tablet, take his tablet. Tell him to go to bed.
We'll pay, the local wages for local work. And by doing that, you can reach into 30% of your opponent's base. And look at where the Democrats are going so left on a lot of these social issues. They are losing all but what I call the yellow dog Democrats within the unions. Forget about SEIU. Forget about the Chicago Teachers Union. Sit here and look at the building trades. Look at those guys who sit at the tavern, drink beer, whatever it is, the guys that love baseball, apple pie, they stand for the national anthem, all that kind of stuff. If you just look them in the eye and say, I'm going to pass what did Joe Biden do the first day in his office? He canceled the Keystone. He shit over 30,000 tradesmen.
Yeah.
And what did the labor guys do?
By the time you got down to the numbers, there was something like 50-something thousand union jobs killed within the first couple minutes.
But the most amazing thing is the safest way to transport petroleum products is by a pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah. And Illinois is the crossroads of America for pipelines. We are. You have more pipeline work going on here than you can shake a stick at. And, our guys do a really good job. But so this is where the Republicans need to be smart. And if you do this, you can sit there and pick up. It's a great job. It's a shitty beer.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so this is where they need to be smart. Be smart. You can sit there and cut into 30% of your opponent's base. And you can do it here in Illinois when you had Democrats support this advertising act, right? Who's one of the largest employers in Southern Illinois? This little plant called Olin in Alton, Illinois. That's all union jobs. So you sit there and put up a campaign that this Democrat sided with the greedy trial lawyers over union jobs. Watch how that flies. We can send a message on stuff and eat into some of this stuff. You just got to be smart about it. And you get some of these billionaires who roll around in the Republican Party. It's like, you guys need to drop some of your anti-trade stuff. You think this entire free market's going to work? And I'm telling you right now, if you want to keep a vibrant middle class, and it was hilarious when I was lobbying Indiana for my union, that I had to argue with Democrats about supporting an infrastructure bill because they didn't want the Republicans to sit there and get the credit for it. And they were, and I'm like, hey, this is the middle class. These are the guys that, like I said, buy pickup trucks, buy bass boats, do all this other stuff. They buy durable goods like washing machines and refrigerators. And the Democrats were voting against it because they didn't want the Republicans to get a win and have a Republican governor sign an infrastructure bill that puts tradesmen to work. And, I don't get it. I don't get what I understand an animosity towards government workers that people feel can never be replaced. I was on a job. I watched 6 dozer guys get fired in 5 days because they couldn't do the job. And our union is like that. If you say you can run this machine, get out there and don't or can't, that's a problem. And there is no protection like some of these other rackets you've heard about or whatever. That's what there is. And these are missed opportunities, just like some of the stuff in the courts. They're missed opportunities that we just don't throw the markers. What I'm really impressed with is in our cert petitions, like I said before, the amount of bare knuckles and sharp elbows that got thrown to really sit there and make, to make the point about how bad the lower courts are. I'm holding out hope. I'm trying to remain optimistic that the court's going to do the right thing and not let 13 years go past for us to get another solid 2. I'm hoping they write a bunch of stuff in Cargill. I hope they write some stuff in Rahimi that tighten up how they're supposed to look at text, tradition, and history and the like. And that's what it, but, absent that, you got to have a mechanism. And that's where I think Jim Jordan, the House Oversight Committees come in. And if we win the Senate, this election cycle, then I think, whoever, I don't know that Grassley's going to be around or not. I don't know who the next Republican would be.
I think Grassley's not far from being out.
Yeah. Methuselah.
Yeah, he's getting Cecil. He's getting to where he's freezing like Cecil the turtle does. So
yeah. So I mean, but imagine if we had 2 committees that would do oversight, and the House being, that's where the articles of impeachment start. And I think they have more than enough grounds to open an investigation into the shenanigans within the 4th and the 9th circuits. You start there.
Yeah.
And maybe you whistle in the 7th Circuit Chief Judge. What's going on? Help us understand this.
I like I said, and that was when you came up with this. What, about 3 months ago, 4 months ago? That's what really interested me about it. And of course, Warsaw hit me up. I think Warsaw might have been the one that sent me your video and said, "Coop, look at this." It was like, damn, that's what we need to do. I'd really like to see everybody start putting heat on them. I tag Jim Jordan on X constantly. I'm basically a pain in his ass. And I'm working on some email stuff to him to try to push a little bit more stuff that's better worded. Than
I haven't looked at the roster of the Judiciary Committee. There are some good guys up there.
Oh, I might have it up right now, as a matter of fact.
Let's see. Roy, the bald-headed guy, Roy something. He's
Chip
from
Roy.
Yeah, Chip Roy. He'd be a good guy to get up there. I don't know.
I got it up here.
I don't know if Tom Massey's on the committee.
Where's the membership? Hold on, let's see if this is it.
Vulcan. Why is there no national water pipeline network? I don't know. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm an operating engineer. I just put the stuff in the ground.
So the House Judiciary right now, of course, you got Chairman Jim Jordan. You have the ranking member Jerry Nadler.
Yeah, the Penguin.
On the Republican end, you've got Darrell Issa, Ken Buck, Ken's normally decent. Andy Biggs is normally okay. Matt Gates. Tom McClintock, he's normally okay.
Who?
Tom McClintock.
Yeah.
Thomas Tiffany, he's normally all right. Chip Roy is there.
Yeah.
Of course, Thomas Massey's always great.
Yeah.
Bishop
he is
really good. Victoria Sparks is there, which she is an absolute firebrand.
Is she the one that's a Ukrainian out of Indiana?
Yes.
I lobbied her at the State House.
Scott Fitzgerald, Cliff Benitez,
BNTZ.
BNTZ. Fuck, I'm going to learn to speak one day, I promise. Ben Klein, he's normally okay. Kelly Armstrong, Lance Golden, Jefferson Van Drew, Barry Moore, that's my buddy from Alabama. He's all right. Troy Nels. Russell Fry is normally really good. Harriet Hagman, she is an absolute monster. Wesley Hunt, who is outstanding. I love that dude. Kevin Kiley, he's normally okay. Laurel Lee, and then Nathaniel Morgan. Those are the Republicans. Now the Democrats on the
Oh,
committee.
don't, come on. I don't want to puke.
Come on, you don't want to do it?
No, I don't want to throw up.
Because guess who some of the members are? Sheila
Oh,
Jackson Lee, Hank Johnson. Come
right.
on. It's the
Is
greatest
Johnson the one who
hit
thought
of retarded.
that the island was going to tip over?
Yes, that is Hank Johnson.
Yeah, that's what
And
I
Sheila
thought.
Jackson Lee is the one who said the moon is basically a cloud of gas, and that the sun is very hot, and we may one day live on the moon, even though it's a gas cloud.
Hey, Coop, you're breaking up really bad.
Oop. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I don't know if it's you. I don't know if it's whatever.
It's probably my
yeah,
connection going stupid.
I know how bad Sheila Jackson Lee is. And then the guy from Maryland that just went through the cancer treatment.
Raskin, Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, he's enough. Him, and then there's that sycophant from New Jersey.
Oh, which one's New Jersey?
The feed. There we go. So, there's that guy from New Jersey that's an absolute brain fart.
Oh, well, you got Eric
yeah,
Swallow
but no.
as well, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's enough guys that you start hitting Jordan up. Then if you hit Chip Roy up and you hit a couple other guys, say, hey, can you guys talk to Jordan about this? I mean, while he's the chairman, maybe we could get Chip or Massey or one of those guys on. You start tagging them on a Twitter feed. If maybe tomorrow I get some time, I'll set up a hashtag. And then if we just start bouncing it around and tagging those guys, hey,
set one up and we'll burn it down.
Start doing that on guys, and why not?
So Todd, are you on Twitter? Can we share your Twitter profile?
Yeah. It's my Freedom Steel. I'd have to go look it up. Hang on a second here, guys.
Well, yeah. You look it up. You'll get to it quicker. I was fixing to say I've got you up on my feed too.
Let me get back over here. Join the chat. Come on? What is this doing?
X, if nothing else. And my X account started off as a complete.
No, now it's trying to put me in the second way because somehow I signed in. You guys sent me the link through my AOL account, so I'm on through Explorer, and now they wants to dump me over to something else. Freedom Steel. You'll find me.
Here, I got it right here.
Yeah. Technology. I'm lucky I can do this.
Look, technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't work,
that's
unlike
why
Rich, I don't want to fix it. I want to shoot it.
That's why I prefer Shrek's way of range estimation instead of dialing everything in and doing all that math. Like, nah.
Oh, that's got to be approved by you, Rich.
Yeah. Can you drop it in the private chat?
Yep.
Here.
Okay. I
there.
All right. So here it is.
So it won't let me post any dirty jokes without you approving them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably a safe way to go with me.
I've been, there's been some, what have I been doing lately? It's
so I followed you. Let's see.
And you guys
all right. So did you guys see, I don't know, did you, the governor did a May the 4th post. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Which one?
Oh, hang on. All right. Give me a second to get over to his stuff so I can, and I'll give it. Where'd it go? It was just there. All right. So here we are. Copy image. Jump back over to you guys. See if this will work. Paste. It won't let me paste a picture. Rats.
Yeah, the chat's
All
in
right.
here. You're not going to be able to paste a picture, but yeah,
So
I saw a couple of May the 4th pictures. Maybe want
okay,
to scare my head
there,
to a disc.
I mean, how do I get the link to the here?
If you drop it in the private channel.
I'm trying to get the link to all this. Come on.
So what we're asking people to do is follow. So it's freedom and 2 S's. So freedom
It's Freedom's
Steel.
Steel. It always has been Freedom's Steel. But I didn't want to put
to
in a
follow you and basically
Twitter.
act as a tweet mob.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
a tweet mob, and then you drop stuff for Jim Jordan's email. I dropped it for him. Let's start putting some pressure on these guys. Hey, we want hearings with these judges. We want to know how they are coming about these procedures. If nothing else, the procedures that they're using,
Right.
because
So
they're
Rich,
definitely going around their standing procedures.
oh yeah. Rich, if you'll click on that and scroll back to May the 4th, you should see the picture I'm talking about that you can share.
May 7th. Oh no way. Oh dude. All right, hold on.
And then
share screen, and then share screen. Dude, really?
Oh, damn. I missed that one, and I'm glad I did.
I know, but hang on. The comments, he is getting roasted. I didn't know Jabba was a Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, it is terrible. And then if you scroll down, they've got my testimony in front of the state police hearing on the Pika rules about their ban on lightsaber parts.
That is hysterical.
Oh yeah, it is just. Oh yeah.
Hold on, Warsaw sent me something.
Yeah, it is.
I've got to go through and read that because I know it's got to be brutal.
No, and Mark Hamill, boy.
Yeah.
What a complete douche canoe.
Yeah, it was just brutal. And then they put somebody posted my video up there, and from my testimony at committee, it was just.
Yeah, because your testimony was perfect. It was, look, what if I'm just a Star Wars nerd? I have these parts for a lightsaber. You guys are going to make me a felon for owning just these objects. Yeah. We watched. I can't remember whether I streamed that or whether I just watched it, but it was beautiful.
So it's been captured and put out there. But so this is the part of the A&M2, and this here would normally be the part of the British Mark III rifle grenade launcher. Because the thing that when they get all excited about that stuff in the Illinois gun ban, they're all thinking like the 203 kind of stuff that mounts into the barrel. They completely forget about all the World War II stuff for the 03s and the M1 Garands that, mount the right, the lug on there and then with a blank. And
I've got a Yugo AK in there.
Yeah.
Underfolder, it's got the grenade lug and everything on it. Of course, it's got the extra catcher on the top cover so the top cover doesn't blow off. but yeah, it's.
Well, the funny thing on when they built the original of this for the movie, they literally threw in the kitchen sink because this piece right here is a faucet knob. It's a cold, and to do it the right way, you can see the C on there for cold water.
Yep,
there it is. So yeah, that's a faucet knob. The A&M2. This is from a Grayflex camera, the flash holder. When they had the big flashes on the side, you see these little bubbles here. If you had a Texas Instrument calculator and the stuff behind the red.
Oh, yeah.
This was the grenade launcher from here to here. And this is part of a Rolls-Royce jet engine.
That is cool as shit. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, but
Ooh,
this is when they didn't just
God.
have CNC machines to model stuff out or 3D printers. They actually went into the back room and said, okay, we got to make something that does this. What do we got? And guys
Man,
had some creativity to it.
freaking, did you guys see Mark Hamill meeting with President Biden the other day?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
but the bad taste in my mouth I'll never get out.
Yeah, that the last. Never mind. I won't make that joke. It was about me. Don't worry, Rich. But it was about me. But I ain't gonna make that joke.
so
So,
otherwise,
gentlemen, we've been on for like 90 minutes. I'd like to wrap it up because
Yes,
I'd eventually like to sleep.
yeah.
I'll say it ain't so, Rich.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm glad you guys. I wish John had been able to join us today. I'm glad you guys
Yes,
are interested in the concept of trying to have some accountability for the Court of Appeals.
and
Uh,
then let's think Warsaw. Warsaw was a huge part of
yep.
trying to grab everybody, get everybody together.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has some
He's
tech
always
issues
working
tonight
behind the
too.
scenes
Yeah,
trying to
So, is
move.
there a mailing list for SADEC, or like should we? What should we be doing with
Uh,
SADEC?
uh, we've got the donation link on the website.
Okay.
So with that, and we've even got it set up where if guys want to make reoccurring subscription stuff, $10 a month, uh,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Just we've got guys at the gun club who just say, you know what, I put like $25 or $35 in there, and it's like my electric bill. It's just gonna go every month, and I don't have to remember,
Mm-hmm.
because I know. Look, I'm not going to name names, but how many times do we get hit up by a lot of other gun groups out there? And some of them are doing a yeoman's job for the amount of litigation they're putting forward.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't grudge them that. I don't, any, but I think that sometimes we need a different set of eyes and
Oh,
a
for sure.
different game to look at. And I think we're proving our mettle. If we get a mention in the Cargill case, then Katie bar the door, But we're trying to put a different set of eyes on this. We're trying to think in a big picture, not just for the here and now win, but we're trying to set up the next 3 or 4 moves. The ghost gun case that's going against the framer receivers rule. Again, we should take the opportunity now that they've accepted that one for cert, and we should work in our amici briefs to turn that into a full throttled Second Amendment case. You
yes,
cannot take away a fundamental right vis-a-vis, the Administrative Procedures Act. You can't relegate a right through regulation into a privilege. And I think we should, sit there and say, look, ATF by Congress has been decreed. They are supposed to regulate an industry. They're not here to screw with every individual gun owner. And I think there's a whole host of ways that we attack this to just put, ATF in this box, that you can get about 10 matchsticks in, and that's it. And,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we need to have, it would be nice if we could get a sit down with all the major players and say, okay, I think the underlying case is a SAF FPC case. Sometimes they go together. Sometimes, with all the stuff that's out there, it's hard to keep. You need a bingo card, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
no
So,
kid.
but everybody take a piece of the pie, like I described earlier. Have this state association, everybody, because amici briefs, if done right, cost between $10,000 and $15,000. That's in the grand scheme. I mean, we are into the FFL lawsuit right now, $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd be amazed if it wasn't more than that.
we haven't got through trial yet. We haven't got through trial. We're just starting with expert depositions. Fortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be a shit ton of discovery and all this other stuff. But it costs money to do this, and hopefully we will recoup a bunch of our legal fees when we prevail on this case, and that happens, it'll tee us up for a couple of more.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
Warsaw
Greg
shot.
Bishop is a great guy. He's
Yeah.
probably he's the one reporter that has really kept up on this for what it is. It's going to be, you know, it's good. He's keeping a lot of people informed out there, but there's a lot
Yes,
of
it is.
places to do it. I mean, social media, I try to get stuff out. Unfortunately, I have been curtailed with my wife's illness. I haven't gotten as much out there. Sometimes I have ideas, then unfortunately, by the time I can get to them, they're not really relevant. Although some of the things that we've got are still relevant. I'm trying to pump stuff out. I'm her full time caregiver. So
Mm-hmm.
it does force me to prioritize certain things.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you got to do that, brother, and we all understand that. But
no,
we appreciate the time you take whenever you do something like this or put out a video, and
Yeah,
so
thank God for the Hallmark channel. That's she was tired tonight, and so she asked me to put Hallmark on for a little bit, and um, But yeah, I'm glad she's still with us. Uh,
absolutely.
she's been a trooper. I've been taking her out to the club with me and letting her try to do some of her scrapbook stuff in the club building while I'm out on the range building stuff for a little while.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, no, she's being a trooper about it. So, but yeah, so SADEC is out there. I mean, if you and here's the one thing about SADEC, you guys know I'm reachable. In between me, the president, Eric Callis, we're not hard guys to find, and you can reach out to us, and you can ask us questions that and get answers that you probably won't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be more responsive. We've had a couple guys throw ideas at us we had not thought about. We're looking at that, saying, hey, does this make sense? Can we make this work? And but stuff like the Cargill brief. Um, we're trying to do things in a different way because we think it matters. Uh, and that, has an impact. And then, with the other social media, the more social media we can get, because
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark Smith does a phenomenal job
Yes.
on the legal aspects of what's going on in the courts.
Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal. I don't get too wrapped up in legislation because having worked inside that system, I know how many bills get thrown out there for a press release and never get
Mm-hmm.
moved.
Mm-hmm.
And people, and look, I think when people tell you who they are, you should believe them, and just say that if they had unfettered, way with things, this is what we would be seeing. You have places that are a little more left, like California and New York, that are actually moving on some of that stuff. Colorado couldn't get a gun ban going.
They
Now,
got enough other stuff going though.
right, but are they like us where it took them X number of years before they could get there? They lose 3 more seats in Colorado. I think they got a problem. But hopefully, before that happens, we get our day in court. So, there's a lot of irons in the fire. If my YouTube channel can grow to where I've got those 250,000 or 500,000 subscribers, then this whole thing with Jim Jordan goes into a different, stratosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's why, John and all you guys are instrumental in that, because it doesn't take, you get that one spark and things go, and it's thinking outside the box on stuff, to sit there and say, how do we put pressure on them? And maybe it makes some people feel good to go beat the snot out of Joe Biden for being a corrupt business enterprise that probably should fall under RICO. But if you're not going to get there at the end of the day, then let's try
Yeah.
if you're going to take the beating for it, then let's do something that potentially matters. Now, let's shine a light on the Ninth Circuit and what they're doing behind
Oh,
the
yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Fourth Circuit. And if the Seventh Circuit is, the Second Circuit has already been warned by SCOTUS. You can't be doing stays without opinions and slowing the roster down and all that. So I think that admonishment to the Second Circuit is why we got an appellate court ruling and hearing so fast on our injunction that we won in Southern Illinois. But the judge down there is not playing games. You got St. Benita's out in
Ninth
California.
Circuit,
We got St. Stephen down in Southern Illinois, and he's not playing games. He's not buying it. He doesn't think there needs to be a shit ton of discovery. He thinks everybody knows who the experts are. All this stuff has been litigated around the country. There should be no new surprises in general. So he wants to have a trial in July.
Warsaw had it right. Judge McGlynn. That was the guy's
Steve,
name.
Yeah, no, it's Steve McGlynn. That's why I call him St. Stephen. So it's McGlynn is good. He is. We drew the best possible judge we could get out of down there. And when because so here's the thing: when a guy talks about a shotgun and only having 3 rounds, a guy, because how many guys don't realize that if it's your typical hunting shotgun, you got to have the plug in there for you can only have 3 rounds in
especially birds,
and right then and there, or my favorite thing was when he sat there and he said, does anybody want to touch this 50 caliber stuff? And the judge Tom Mag from Southern Illinois, the other case, he stood up and said, yeah. And McGlynn looked down and said, well, isn't it a fact that George Washington carried a 56 caliber pistol? How many other judges know shit like that?
Right.
And I mean, if you just listen to him in that injunction hearing and everything, you look at the transcript, he was just awesome.
Got to give Mags a shout out, because Mags is an absolute ace. I mean, especially when he went into the part of the stuff not too long back, one of the oral arguments, it basically said his 22 caliber pistol would be counted as an assault weapons under these bans. That drives that home. This is so ridiculous.
Right. They're working on a declaration for me, and one of the things is I like trench guns, and I like
slam fire.
Well, just the whole World War I, World War II genre of trench guns is just like, okay. And then you've got, the World War II subguns. And it's been amazing that American Tactical Imports has brought in or made like an MP40 or a Sturmgewehr.
Well,
and they
Rich knows who to do that with.
And they made some of those in 22s. There was a whole thing for a while between GSG and then Walter got involved making the 22 MP5 clones, but all those are just as evil. And they said it on the floor of the Illinois Senate that they were not exempting 22s because they wanted to go after guns like the Tech 22.
Yes. Because people don't realize when they read a lot of these gun bans, and we'll let Rich out of here to go to bed in a sec. When they read most of these gun bans, you almost always have this exception for 22 rimfire written into a lot of these bans. And then Illinois was one of the first people I saw, or the first state I saw, that really just went after them too and was like, nope, not even 22. No. It drives home what these people ultimately want to do is they just want to knock over dominoes until they get to all guns. That's it. That is their end goal. Absolutely. All the way around.
Yep. So guys, it has been a wonderful time chatting with you tonight. Wish we could get together more often. Rich, give my best to Mr. Crump.
Will do.
I hope he's feeling better and everything.
I hope so.
It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother.
Yeah. So, guys, I appreciate it. And as always, frag out.
Take care.